Hello and welcome to the introduction to HTML. So let's start this section understanding about HTML. So let's look at what is the section objective on what you'll be learning after completing this section. Well, you will learn what is HTML, what is the full form of HTML, and how the HTML is used in the websites. Then we'll learn how to write HTML pages and understand its structure. Then we'll create something called as HTML boilerplate template. This is basically a template, a starting point, and we'll define how to create those boilerplates and reuse for all our websites. Then we'll understand how to write HTML pages using the headings, paragraphs, comments, horizontal line breaks, text formatting using strong emphasis, underline, italics. Then we'll use some of the HTML tags like pre-code, list, links, article tags with exercises. So we're gonna do a lot of exercises, and also we're gonna create web pages using all these tags. And we'll understand how a web page is built using HTML tags. Okay, so let's start our topic now. Welcome to HTML basics. So let's understand what is HTML. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So what is hypertext? Hypertext is basically all the images, videos, text, and all those data that is being transferred over the web is called as hypertext. Okay, and what is a markup language? Well, markup is a language using which you mark the contents. You mark the purpose of that content using the markup language. So we'll understand how the HTML is written and what markups are there in the HTML. Okay, but for the full form of the HTML, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So in order to mark your hypertext, you use the markup language. So let's understand what is the purpose of HTML. Well, HTML is used to describe the structure of the web page. So if you look at the websites, all the structure, like you have an heading, you have a paragraph, you have subheadings, then you have a footer, then you have a header. All the structures is being defined using HTML. Okay, so the purpose of HTML when you write HTML is basically you are describing the structure of the web page. And HTML is used to describe how the content should be displayed on the web browser. So when you're developing a website, HTML will give you some tags using which you can describe how those contents should be displayed onto the web page. So that's the purpose of the HTML. Well, we have met these two gentlemen, Jim from USA and Bob in Australia, in the web basics section. If you haven't covered that web basics section and jumped directly to HTML section, then what we covered in that web basics, we talked about Jim staying in USA and he's a buyer and is thinking to buy a phone for a cheaper price. Bob in Australia, he want to sell a phone for a cheaper price and he want to sell a phone, right? So Jim being the buyer and Bob being the seller, they want to exchange information. So we discussed about all those things in the web basics. So if you want to understand more about what we discussed, you can go back to web basics topic. So let's understand how an information can be exchanged between Jim and the Bob and how HTML basically help us to do that. So in that context, we'll understand what is the purpose of the HTML and what role does it play. Okay, so we have discussed about client side and the server side. Let's do a quick review. Client side is basically Jim opening up a browser and typing bob.com. Then the request is sent to the bob.com to fetch the data. Bob.com receives that request, send the response with the data to the browser, right? And one who is initiating the request is called as requester, and one who is responding the request is called as provider. And provider basically is called as server side, which actually have all the hypertext, which has the images, video, music files, and text. Everything is available at the server side. And from the client side, you initiate the request to fetch those details from the server. Let's understand what is the purpose of the HTML. What is that job that HTML does in the client server technology? So imagine the situation wherein browser is trying to send a request and server is sending the response. The first thing that happens is Bob will type a URL, right? It will type saying that page.html. This is what I want from the bob.com. And this request is sent to bob.com. The bob.com basically have a HTML page. Okay, this is where you will write your HTML page and call it as a page.html. That is the extension of the HTML page. And in this page, you will link all the resources on the server. Okay, and once this page is written and it linked to all its resources, that page is sent back from the server to the client. And what is written inside the HTML page? The HTML page is basically connecting all the resources on the system and it is displaying the data onto the browser. Okay, HTML is used to describe the content on the browser. Remember the definition of HTML. So if you want to show any of the hypertext content sitting inside the server, you write an HTML page and you link all those resources in the HTML page, and then anybody request for that HTML page is sent back as a response to the browser, and browser has the capability to display that HTML code into the browser. Okay, so when we write and run an HTML page, we'll try to understand how the content is being displayed onto the web browser. Okay, but from here you have to understand the purpose of the HTML is to embed all the resources from the server, and second purpose is to display the content onto the web browser. So in short, the main purpose of HTML is to embed the resource on the server. The resources could be video, image, text, data, anything that is sitting on the server. You want to display that onto the client machine, onto the browser. Then you create something called as HTML page and you write HTML code in it, and that code can be used to display the content from the server onto the client machine. Well, HTML uses something called as markup language, and you can use the markup language to mark the content on the page. For an example, you want to display an image, you mark that image as an image using the markup language, and you say, oh, here I want to display an image. If you want to display a video from a server, you basically mark that up into the HTML page, say, oh, at this point you should be displaying a video. Okay, so all the things that you're doing in HTML is basically you're trying to mark up the content on the page. Okay, that's all you're doing in the HTML page. And how the markup looks like, let me show you an example. So this is a markup. If you want to display a paragraph, right, you want to write a paragraph of text, you mark it up with something called as markup. A markup looks like you have a less than symbol, greater than symbol, then you have a tag name, that's basically the name of the markup. Then there is a starting point and an ending point. The starting point will have less than and greater than and then the name of the tag, and the ending tag will have the /. That's nothing but the slash. Okay, so this is a starting point, this is an ending point, and anything inside is you are marking it up. You are marking up and saying this is a paragraph. Okay, instead of that you can even mark up an image, you can mark up a video, you can mark up an heading and then say this is basically an heading. Well, this is the instruction that is given in the HTML file. So when the web browser reads this instruction, it knows how it need to print those data onto the web browser. So HTML is really marking up the content and telling the browser how do you display this data onto the browser. So let's take an example. On the right hand side on the server you have these files like page.html, dog1.jpg and dog.mpg. You have a video, you have an image, and then you have a HTML file. So all the things that you do in HTML code is you will write markup language, you will mark all the contents onto the server. Okay, if you want to display an image, you will use an image tag. If you want to display a video, you will use a video tag. So you're basically telling the browser, okay, this is the image and the path is here, please print it. This is the video, the path is here, please print it. So that's the job of an HTML. You are marking up the contents and those contents are sitting somewhere in the server. Okay, it is embedding all the resources in the internet. If you want to link pages like one page to another, again in HTML code you will say, okay, now when someone click this, please go there. Well, that's the power of the HTML. Okay, and when HTML is displayed in the browser, it reads all this HTML code and it say, oh, now you're asking me to print a heading. So I will increase the font and make it more bigger so that anybody can see the heading. And then it says, okay, you want me to display an image, let me display an image. And where is the resource? The resource is going back to the server and say the file is somewhere here. Then you want to display a video, then again the path to the video has been given. Okay, then you see there is a footer and then there's basically some paragraphs in it. So try to realize this, that HTML code is a markup language. You are marking up the content and describing the structure of the web page. And where do you display the HTML page? You display the HTML page on the browser. And browser understands the HTML code and try to display the markup language that has been written to display the content on the web browser. What are the markup language? How they should write it? This is what we'll learn in this section. Alright, so let's do a quick summary of what is HTML. HTML is a markup language. You use markup to mark the content on the web page. Markups are used in HTML page to mark the contents. HTML is used to describe how the content should be displayed on the browser. That's the purpose of the HTML. It is an instruction to the browser to say display the content like this. That's all is HTML all about. One of the most powerful thing about HTML, that HTML page helps to link all the resources on the server. So if you have to connect all the files around the internet, you can do it via the HTML. HTML has that power that it can connect any resources sitting under any server which is publicly available to access. You can mark those things inside the HTML. Okay, it's really connecting things together in the internet. That's the power of HTML. And how does all these things happen? The client browser sends the request to access that HTML page. Remember, HTML page is sitting at the server, right? And someone has to initiate that request. So client browser send the request to access that HTML page. Then server sends that HTML page to the client browser. Then the client browser understand that markup and display that content onto the web browser. Okay, that's how the whole HTML scenario works. And that's how all the resources on the server is accessed via the client via using this client server technology. Okay, and understand what is HTML. HTML is a markup language which is used to describe the content onto the web browser. Well, that's all about what is HTML. Let's build some HTML pages and understand in detail. Hello and welcome to the lecture. Let's understand what is tag, element and attribute. Let's understand what are these words called as tag, element and attribute. Okay, tags look something like this. You have a less than symbol, then you have the name of the tag, then you have greater than symbol, then you have a closing tag which is called as less than, / and same name that you used it here. Okay, and then you have some content inside it. So the starting tag is called as starting tag. You can say starting tag, right? And the ending tag is nothing but the ending tag. The one that is end with a / is called as ending tag. You can also call as starting tag as an opening tag, and obviously ending tag can be called as closing tag. So that's basically the definition of tag. So when someone say tag, you should think of opening tag or a closing tag or starting tag or an ending tag. Let's look at what is element. The whole thing from starting tag till the ending tag, including the content, is called as element. Okay, so when somebody says element, they are referring to starting tag, ending tag and the text as well. Okay, an example of an element could be a paragraph tag where it is denoted with P, less than, P and greater than. Then you have text inside it. Then you have less than, / P and greater than. So everything in starting tag and the ending tag and the text is called as element. So how do you rate this? You say this is a paragraph element and you can write text inside this tag. Okay, you can switch over between tag and an element. So you can even say starting tag and the ending tag, and then you can even say it's an element. Okay, so that's basically the difference between tag and an element. Okay, element is the complete thing, tag is just the opening tag and the closing tag. Okay, let's look at what is empty tag. When you don't have a data from a starting and a closing, then you call it as an empty tag. Empty tag is also called as self-closing tag. You also have tags where you don't have to mention content. If you see this example, less than tag, / and greater than. You don't have a starting tag, you only have the ending tag. And here you have starting tag and an ending tag, but you don't have a data inside it. These two examples are called as empty element, which means you don't have a data in it. If you want to add a new line that is denoted with BR element, and it is denoted like less than, BR, / and greater than, you don't mention any data in it, and it is called as an empty element. Okay, so that's how you basically read an empty element. Let's understand what is an attribute. Every element or every tag that you have can have additional properties. Attributes can also be called as properties. Properties means additional information about that element. If you have a tag and you want to mention some additional properties of that tag, you can give a name is equal to open quotes, value and the closing quotes. Okay, you can mention the name and the value defined in the specification. You cannot write whatever you want. You have to follow the specification of HTML and use them. Okay, an example, if you're writing a link or a hyperlink, you have to mention where, when someone clicks this text, where that data has to go. What is the URL location and what is the text that should be displayed on the browser. So visit us is displayed and this will be linked. When someone click the visit us, they have to go to this location. So in this whole element, href is nothing but an attribute. Okay, take one more example. I'm just using an example as a dog, but dog is not a tag in HTML, but I'm just giving an example to understand the concept of attribute. And if a dog element has something called as color attribute, and color value is brown, and the value of that dog is German Shepherd, how you are reading and understanding this? Dog element has a color attribute, and color is the attribute of the dog element. That's how you basically read it. Okay, I'm trying to tell you how do you read these attributes. Okay, so dog element has a color attribute, and then a href is basically an attribute of anchor tag. A tag is also called as anchor tag. Okay, and you can also say color is the attribute of dog element. So okay, this is how you read an attribute. So let's do a quick summary of what we have learned. So this is the perfect example. Again, name is not an HTML tag. I'm just giving you a definition of tag, element and attribute. So name here is basically called as opening tag. The name here is called as closing tag. An attribute is called as class, and that class has some value. And the name is basically saying some person name. And from starting tag to ending tag or opening tag to closing tag is called as element. Here you're trying to define a real-time example. You're trying to define a name, a person name as John Smith, and also you're adding some properties to it, and you're saying John Smith is in second class. Okay, so if you have to define this, you write something like this. So you open and close with the opening and the closing tag. You define some attributes to tell more about that person. Element is nothing but the opening and the closing tag. Okay, so this is the definition of tag, element and attribute. Okay, so when we read and write about HTML, we will be using this language. I'll be saying tag, I'll be saying element, I'll be using paragraph element, header element, h1 tag, or I'll be saying the attribute of this h1 tag could be this. So don't get confused. Try to understand this language. This is a new language you're learning, and try to use these words when you try to define HTML. Okay, so that's all in this lecture of tag, element and attribute, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture. Let's look at structure of an HTML page. So let's create a simple HTML page and understand how the structure of an HTML page looks like. For that, you have to open the bracket software. Then we'll create a folder. You can go to any location you want on your PC or Mac. Create a folder. I'll call it PHP training. And I'm going to call introduction to HTML. Inside this, I'm going to create a folder called as structure of HTML. Okay, so in this we will create the HTML file. So how to create an HTML file? The HTML file extension will be .htm or .html. So for this, you can first we'll create the parts of HTML. You'll understand what is the tags that we have to write inside HTML, and we'll rename it as parts.html. To open this, you can open your brackets. You can drag and drop. That's one way to do it. Or you can open this folder. You can copy this folder. You can say open folder, right? And all the files that you created here will be visible. Okay, you can even go one level up. Open folder. So once you do that, you basically get all the folders here. So it's easy to look at the files and the folders. Okay, it's up to you how you want to do it, but we will open this folder introduction to HTML so that we can see all the folders that we create here and all the files that is inside that folder, right? So let's define the parts of an HTML. The first thing that you write in HTML is the doc type. This is your defining your page as an HTML, and HTML actually have a specification. So you are specifying that I'm going to follow this specification in an HTML format. Okay, so that's basically your document type. Okay, and everything, all the tags that you define is already predefined in HTML. So when a browser reads this HTML file, it knows what specification to use to render this output. Okay, that's where the doc type comes in. Doc type is telling this document is basically an HTML type. So when a browser renders this, it understands as an HTML, and renders means display it as an HTML format. Okay, so the first tag always in an HTML page should be doc type, and everything that you write inside an HTML should be under the HTML tags. Okay, you should not write anything outside here or anything outside here. Okay, remember that everything should be written inside HTML opening and the closing tags. Okay, so there are two important parts of an HTML. One is the head section and one is the body section. Okay, the two parts here, head section is basically the information about your page. This is the information about your page. Okay, this is the displaying the content on the web browser. So anything that you want to display on the web page or the web browser, you write it under the body. Anything you want to mention about this page, like metadata, like your title and everything you want to mention about your page, you define under head. So whatever you define under head is not visible. Everything that you define inside the body is basically visible on the page. Okay, so remember this structure. This is the structure of an HTML. First thing you mention is a doc type to tell the browser who is rendering this HTML that this is an document type of HTML specification. Means you have to render this in HTML. Then you start off with HTML and end with an HTML. You see every opening tag has a closing tag. Okay, and then the main important parts of an HTML is head and body. In head section, whatever you define will not be displayed on the browser. Whatever you want to display on the browser, you write inside the body. Okay, so this is how the structure or parts of an HTML looks like. So let's write some content here and understand how to write an HTML page. So I'm going to create one more page, structure.html. Let's open. You don't have to open this up. I think it will be already visible here. Structure.html. Okay, you can copy paste this and then we'll start over from there. Okay, and remember, you don't write anything outside. You have to mention everything inside the tag. Okay, because I wrote it like that just to show you an example. The most important thing in the head section is basically mentioning about your page. So there is a tag called meta tag, using which you can say what is your character set. Means you're talking about what character set this HTML is using. And obviously if you're using UTF-8, you can mention about UTF-8. And the beauty about meta tag is there is only opening tag and there is no closing tag for meta tags. Okay, that has special meaning. It is describing the char set of your HTML page and it is mentioned in the head section. Okay, the next section is basically your title. Okay, title is displayed on the browser, right? I'm going to see when you run this, you will see, you can say this has a page title. Okay, you see how I'm writing the tag, opening tag and the closing tag, and I'm writing inside the opening and the closing tag. Okay, that's basically our head section. Head over to the body. So whatever you write inside the body is displayed on the content of the browser. Okay, and there are some tags called h1 which we will learn in the next section. Is called heading. You can say heading here. Then you're gonna write the paragraph here and you're gonna say this is a paragraph. Okay, it's not, we haven't covered what is heading and paragraph as of now, but look at the structure of the HTML. This is how the structure of an HTML looks like. Okay, so how to run this, how to see an output. There's a button here which says live preview. Just click on this live preview button, say OK, and the Chrome browser will be used to display the live preview of what you're writing it here. Okay, I'm going to minimize it in such a way you can see the output. All right, So whatever you're writing it here will always visible onto your browser. Okay, and it's a live preview, means if you change something here, this is a live, you see it's visible onto the browser as a live preview. You don't have to refresh, you don't have to do. That's the beauty of using the brackets editor. It gives you this live preview where, and it will tell you what you're trying to change. So if I click on heading, you see heading is selected. If I click on paragraph, the paragraph is selected. So you know which tag you're changing. And this is basically the structure of the HTML looks like. And whatever you write under head tag is not actually displayed. The title is not displayed, but the title is displayed onto the browser, not on the content area. Anything that you want to display on the content area, you write under body. Anything you want to describe about this page, you write under head. Okay, so this is how the structure of an HTML looks like, and make sure everything is written under the HTML. Don't write anything outside here, and don't write anything outside here. Okay, remember your HTML should be in this format, having HTML, head, body. These are the three main important parts of an HTML. Okay, so that's about the structure of the HTML. So let's start understanding all these tags of an HTML and start building our website. So let's create our first HTML page. So I'll create another folder called as first HTML page. Okay, here we will create a file called welcome.html. This is gonna be your first HTML page. Okay, we'll open brackets because we have opened the top folder. You can see introduction to HTML. You can find your first HTML page. Let's open this up. Okay, so let's start typing our first HTML page. Okay, obviously we have to define our doc type, that is HTML. Then we will define our HTML structure. Okay, what is our structure of an HTML? We have head, then we have body. Okay, and we know whatever you write inside the body is displayed on the content of the browser. And head have meta tag. You can describe about the page. So you can say the char set I'm gonna use is UTF-8, and there's no closing tag for meta tag. Even there is one more meta tag with a different property called as name, and name basically says what you're trying to define. So I'm trying to define a description of my page, and what is the content of it? The content of it is basically this is a HTML page. Okay, this is just an metadata of your page. This is used by your SEO. Let's say when Google comes to your page, index your page, it try to identify what is this description of this page. So when they display this page onto the search results, they use this description as a text to display on the search results. So that's one of the way the meta tag can be useful. It is about describing your page. Okay, so it has different attributes called name and description, and content, you give the content name. But anyway, these details will not be displayed on the browser. It's more about describing about your page. Okay, however, you have title as well. You have title which is displayed onto the title bar of the browser. So you can say welcome to HTML. Okay, now go to body tag, and we'll again learn about heading tags and all those things here. But understand h1 is used to display headings and paragraph is used to display the paragraph. Okay, simple to understand. And we're gonna say welcome to HTML here, and we're gonna say HTML stands for language, and it is used to describe the structure of the page. Okay, how do you preview it? When you click this button, this preview is visible here. Okay, if you don't want the preview, you close this, go to your page, and then you double click it. Okay, whatever is the browser that has been set, you can say I want to use Google Chrome as my default browser, say okay. Okay, and this will open up your page. If you look at the page, that is welcome.html, this file has been opened. And if you look at your code here, okay, you cannot find this description. This is a HTML page. You cannot find it anywhere because this is a meta tag. Well, this is an information about your page. This is useful for search engines who are searching your page and want to know what is this page about. So you're communicating about your page to them, okay, which is not displayed on the browser. And you can find this welcome to HTML here, and you can find the heading displayed onto the browser, and you can find the paragraph displayed onto this web browser as well. So anything that you write inside the body is visible here. Anything that you write inside the head is not visible onto the browser. Okay, so remember that. And whatever we're gonna write in terms of displaying the content onto the browser, we will be writing inside the body. Okay, well, that's how you write the HTML page. So congratulations, and if you have done this exercise, then this is basically your first step towards building websites. And we will be writing so much of code in HTML and understanding how to work with HTML in the upcoming sections. So congratulations and welcome to HTML. Hello and welcome to the lecture on creating the boilerplates. So let's understand what is a boilerplate. Okay, before that I want you to visit this website, HTML5 boilerplate.com. Okay, let's understand what is HTML5 boilerplate. Okay, boilerplate is nothing but a front-end template. Okay, this is basically a startup template. Whenever you write HTML, right, you don't typically start typing doc type, HTML head and start typing all these things. What you do is you basically create a template. You create a front-end template and then you always start from that template. Well, this is a very common practice among all the web developers where they tend to use a boilerplate, nothing but a front-end template. And this is one of the popular front-end template that most of the people use because it includes some of the important things that you need in an HTML page, right? Many people need Bootstrap, so it's already have Bootstrap. Many people need jQuery or Ajax included into their page, so it's already pre-included into this page. So this boilerplate basically includes some of the important things that we need to start up our HTML page. Okay, if you don't like to use boilerplates, it's up to you. If you don't like to use a template, it's up to you. You can start typing from the starting every time you use it, but to save time and also to have a standard across all your HTML pages, we tend to recommend to have a boilerplate. Okay, so we'll create one boilerplate. And you will see that for all the examples that I will be writing based on the boilerplates. We will start having a boilerplate and from there we will start editing the code. Okay, so for that we'll create our own boilerplate and then we will reuse for all our other HTML pages, right? So for that we'll create one folder. We'll call it as HTML boilerplate. Okay, and we'll create a file called boilerplate.html. Okay, and don't worry about this boilerplate, don't download this because it has many other things which we haven't discussed yet, so it will be too much for you to use. But once you get used to HTML, right, building websites, then it's a good practice you start with an HTML5 boilerplate. It's a very good boilerplate and defined from all the standard HTML pages that we write. Okay, so make sure if you are writing a project for a website, you use something called as a boilerplate. So for our practice purposes, we will create our own boilerplate. We'll create simple tags which we can reuse, create as a base for our future projects. Okay, so I'm going to open this file, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste from the welcome, and we'll edit it in such a way that we can reuse for all the future HTML files that we are writing. Okay, so this is basically your description. Okay, and we're going to say page title. Then this is our heading, and this is our paragraph. Okay, I'll say paragraph text. Okay, and let's look at live preview of it. Okay, nothing fancy, you are having a heading and a paragraph text. Okay, and this is our boilerplate. So anything we're going to learn, we're going to start writing from here. So we're going to not repeat ourselves by writing all these tags again and again. Instead, this is our boilerplate, all the template we will reuse for all our projects. Okay, so you can have your own boilerplate. As of now, we haven't discussed about any HTML tags, so you haven't learned anything as of now. But for us to start with, remember, you should know what is an head tag, what is a body tag, and what is the purpose of having the tags in head tag, and what is the purpose of writing anything in the body tag. If you at least know these basic things where you should start writing your HTML code, it will help you to write a boilerplate so that you can reuse for all the new learnings that you are doing. You can start adding all the new learnings and you'll know whether I should put in head section or I should put in the body section. So this is a boilerplate. Remember this, we're going to use this boilerplate and will not write this code again in the future lessons. Okay, so that's all for this lecture on HTML boilerplate, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on headings. So let's understand how to write headings in HTML. So this is our first tag in HTML that we'll be using on displaying the content. So let's create a folder called headings. Okay, and let's create a file called headings.html. Okay, and let's open that file as well. You can find it in headings. Okay, and we will use our boilerplate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this up, go to headings, and I'm going to paste. And this is the step I'm going to do for every HTML file, because that is the real purpose of having a boilerplate. Then I'm going to say headings. You can change the title to headings. Okay, we will remove the p tag because we're not going to learn about p tag here. We're going to learn about headings. Okay, headings, if you just do a live preview of it, I'm going to close this browser. If you look at the live preview of h1 tag that we have been seeing so far, you observe the font. The first thing that you observe is the font and the size of your wordings. Okay, size of that font. That is the two things that you have to observe. And anything that you write after the h1 tag, you see how it goes to a new line. Okay, there are 6 heading tags, h1 to h6. 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Similarly, we'll change this also. Right, so we have 6 headings. Let's say heading 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Okay, and you have to observe the font size. Okay, observe the font size, observe the styling of that heading tags, and observe the new lines. There is a new line after every heading. But you see, we haven't mentioned anything about size. We haven't mentioned everything about the color. We haven't even mentioned anything about it should be in the new line. Okay, and the new line is not because you are putting it in a new line. Okay, let's try to do this experiment and see. All right, let's remove all the new lines. Okay, even though you remove, the new line still appears. That's basically Google browser has its own style sheet, has its own specification of how to display the HTML tags. If you want to change those specification, then you basically write something called as CSS, which you will learn in the next section, to change the behavior of how the HTML tag should be displayed on the browser. But for now, you have to observe how the heading happens. Couple of things: when you write headings, you should understand that heading will insert a new line, and headings are of different size and shape. Okay, and why we write headings? Okay, what is the purpose of writing headings? Typically in a page you only have 1 or 2 headings. Typically you have one heading, and then you have 2 or 3 subheadings, that is basically heading 2. And depending on your blog, if you have more headings, you can go ahead and write heading 2s. And heading 3 is basically the subtitle of this heading. Okay, typically 4 and 5, you know hardly you will go to that level where you have the heading, subtitle, subtitle, and then you want to emphasize something. You don't really write it as a heading. So think of heading as a table of content, right? When you write a table of content, till what level you want to go? You have your parent heading, then you have subtitle, and then whatever the subtitle inside that title. Okay, so that's basically the purpose of heading tags, and it's recommended that you have one heading tag and couple of heading 2 tags, and then you can also choose to have heading 3 and 4. Okay, you will hardly reach heading 5 and 6 in most of the HTML pages, but you will be enough to write your headings with H1 to H4. Okay, but still up to you how to want to use it. But the purpose of writing heading is really to write headings for any content. For blog post, for the blog post, you can write heading like what is HTML, that is the H1 tag. Then you can describe the structure of the HTML, parts of the HTML, the purpose of doc type, and all those things you can define inside your subheadings. Okay, so that's how you play around with headings. Headings are really writing headings for a specific topic. Okay, so remember there are 6 headings, H1 to H6. Depending on H1 is the biggest, H6 is the smallest. Okay, so that's all about headings, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on paragraph and comments. So we'll learn 2 more tags here. We'll learn how to write paragraphs. We'll learn how to write comments in HTML. Okay, so go to introduction to HTML. Let's create another folder, paragraphs and comments. Okay, and we'll create a file. We'll write both paragraph and comments in one file. Change it to .html, and then we'll use bracket to open it up. Okay, so let's open this up. Remember the boilerplate. We copy the boilerplate, we paste it here, we change our description to paragraph and comments. Alright, so first we will learn how to write comments in HTML. Comments are comments that is not displayed on the browser. So how do you write it? You write less than symbol, exclamatory mark, dash dash, then dash dash, greater than symbol. So whatever you write inside this, right, is everything is a comment. So this is a comment. Okay, and this will not be printed as an output, but this text is visible on the browser. Okay, what I mean, I'll show you that. So if you look at this comment, you cannot see the comment here. So if you press right click and say view page source, then you can see the comment of written in the HTML, but obviously you cannot see that comment on your web page. Alright, and this is the only comment that is available in HTML. Typically when you say comment, comments are single line comments, multi-line comments, but everything that you write is a comment is using this. This is single line comment, and to convert this single line to multi-line, all you have to do is press enter. That's all, because there is only just one comment in HTML. There are no single line, no multi-line. Everything start with less than, exclamatory mark, and then dash dash and dash dash and greater than symbol. And remember, this is not displayed onto the output. So you are free to write whatever you want to write as a documentation. For learning purpose, you can start writing comments. Okay, and don't make this one mistake. Okay, when you write a comment, don't add a space here. Once you start adding space after the less than symbol, it will be visible onto the output, right? Because that is not a comment. Okay, make sure the spaces are after you have added the dash dash. Okay, so now after you have dash dash, you can add n number of space and it will be fine. It will not be able to display the output. All right, so understand how the comments are written in HTML page, because it's very important. If you want to comment any of the code, let's say this code I want to comment it out, I'm gonna just say dash dash, and I'm gonna say dash dash and greater than symbol. Okay, and if you look at the output, all the contents are gone because this is commented. Okay, so let's understand how to write a paragraph. So for that, I'm going to use an h1 tag. You can see what I'm typing it here. we'll see real time as well. Alright, so let's create a news. So we'll say today's news. Okay, we have the heading there, and I want to type some paragraph. I want to say start of an article. You see how it is appearing here as well, so you know how you should write your HTML page. Okay, and I want to paste some content here. Typically when you want to paste content, you tend to do this, right? There's a better way to write all those garbage there. This is called as lorem ipsum. Okay, if you're hearing lorem ipsum for the first time, this is a garbage content. You can paste it anywhere you want, right? I'm gonna copy this up. Okay, it's a dummy content, right? No specific meaning to it. Okay, and it's famous in the web. Many of the websites use this to fill up their page. Okay, so I'm also gonna give you the link here. If you want to add a link where you got the source from, typically you can do that via this, and you can add the link here, right? Okay, you can see the start of an article here. Now I want to end my article, so I'm going to add one more paragraph to it and say end of article. Okay, I can even say start of another article and end of another article. Right, so if you observe properly, every paragraph is a new line here. Okay, even though the paragraphs are not written in a new line here, so by default the browsers are adding new line for your paragraphs. Okay, like heading has a new line, even paragraph has a new line. Okay, so you have to be careful when you deal with paragraphs, and if you really want a new line, then you go ahead and add paragraphs to it. Let's say you want to add a paragraph maybe after 1500. What you can do, simply say end of the paragraph, start of the paragraph, and that's all. You get a new line here. Paragraph are really paragraph. When you want to write text on a browser, you write it in a paragraph, and typically a most useful use cases of writing paragraphs are writing blogs. If you're writing blogs, you want to display content and you want to display headings and content. Heading will be handled by h1 to h6 tags. The paragraph will handle all your text, right? And sometimes you want to say, okay, I don't want to have my start of article in paragraph. Maybe you choose to have h2 here. Okay, so this is how you play around with having h1 and h2 and paragraph. If you want to have different size of your title, you can deal with h1 to h6, and for all the text that you want to write as a paragraph, you define it under p tag. Okay, so here's how your HTML file looks like. Let's open our actual file, double click this. Okay, this is how your HTML file will look like. Okay, and you can see this is our heading tag, h1 tag, this is your h2 tag, and this is your paragraph tags. Then you have h2 tag, then all these are paragraph tags. To see the source code, right click on it, view page source, and you should be able to see the source code. And if you see the source code from here, from the brackets, you will see some of the brackets tags added here. Okay, so don't go and open up this up and view your code. Make sure you open your file via a browser, and then you press Ctrl U or right click or say view page source. Well, that's all on this lecture on writing paragraph and comments in HTML, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on understanding horizontal lines and new lines. Okay, if you go to introduction to HTML, we'll create a new folder and we will write it as horizontal lines and line breaks. Okay, and we'll create a file here. So instead of that, I want you to start with the file. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste the file here, but if you open up the material folder, you should be able to find this file. Okay, so start with this file. What I want to do is remove this start here and remove this copy. Okay, and let's open up in the brackets. Okay, to this page we will add line breaks. That's basically the horizontal lines, and we will add the breaks into it. So open up this, go to this folder, horizontal lines, open up this file. So I'm going to close all the other files. Okay, so let's look at this output first, how it looks like. Okay, so you have your h1 tag. Obviously you have your h1 tag. Then you have some h2 tags for main news, news 1 and news 2. Then you have your footer, and then you have some paragraphs in it. Okay, but what you want to do is you want to add some lines here to segregate the sections, and also you want to add some breaks here. You don't want the text to go run all the way to the right, but you want to have it in a nice paragraph. Okay, so that's what we're going to learn in this lecture. So to this same page, horizontal and lines break, let's add a line. Okay, so let's do a preview here. Okay, and the horizontal line tag is HR. It's a self-closing tag. You don't have to end anything. You can just write HR and you will see a horizontal line appearing here. Similarly, we can add after the news is completed, we want to write one more HR. You can see it's nicely formulated. Again, before the footer or after the main news is completed, you want to add one more horizontal line. Okay, now the HTML page looks much neater now. You have different sections of it. You have the horizontal lines to segregate the section. That's basically the HR will add these lines. Then now you want to break the content so that it looks nicer into a paragraph. For that, there is a tag called BR. It's again a self-closing tag, and you can add that when the text is been ending. Okay, you can add like this even. The self-closing, you can choose to have slash or you can choose not to have slash. Okay, you can add one tag here and one tag here. Okay, and similarly for all the rest of it, you will try to add the same tags. And you see on the right hand side, that's where the break is coming up. You see 1500 here. I'm gonna add the break here, and you see it's breaking now. So break is basically breaking up the line, breaking up the text and moving it to the next line. Okay, that's what the break does. But if you try to add new lines like this, okay, it's not gonna add new lines onto the output. Okay, if you want to add a break, you have to use a tag. Everything in HTML is a markup language, so you have to mark this up to say this is a new line. If you want to add two lines, okay, you can do it via breaks. Okay, you see it's breaking up here, right? So the way you add breaks, the new lines, is via this BR tag. If you want to add the horizontal lines, you do it via the HR tag. And remember, all the white spaces, new lines is being ignored by HTML. It doesn't care how many lines you write in HTML page. It doesn't consider it as a new line. Okay, you have to mention that via a markup. Only when you say as a markup, then the browser will read it as a new line and add a new line. If you're not going to do that, then it's not going to understand that. Okay, so now if you open up the page, you can see it's nicely formatted now. Okay, let's close this up and open our actual file. Okay, and open up in a full view mode. Okay, now you can see the new lines is properly added, and then you have an horizontal line just to segregate the section. Now the page looks much neater, and then you are able to identify different news into sections via the horizontal lines. All right, so that's how you write an HR tag to horizontal lines, BR tag for breaks. And remember, these are self-closing tag. You can choose to have slash or you can choose not to have slash. These are empty elements or self-closing tags. And remember, the new lines, even if you add new lines into the HTML page, it won't render in the output. You need to specify it via the markup language. Okay, so that's all about horizontal lines and the line breaks, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello and welcome to the lecture on understanding strong emphasis, underline and italics. So you'll understand how to apply these styles into your web page. So go to your introduction to HTML folders, right click, and we'll create one more folder called as strong. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a startup file, a reference file, which you can find in the material folder, and you can start from there. So this is a file that you can find in the material folder. All you can do is you can copy this up, remove the start here, okay, and we'll start using in the brackets now. Okay, let's close all other files. Okay, to this we will apply the styles. Okay, typically there are many styles available you can apply, and styling is actually applied via the CSS, but still HTML gives you some simple tags to apply the styles to your text. Okay, and these styles are called as, one is strong, the tag is strong. Okay, they are not self-closing tags, but I'm just trying to define them here. Okay, this is to bold the text. Okay, then next is italics. This is to italics the text. Then you have underline. For underline you have U tag. Then you have emphasis. If you want to emphasize like a quote, you can use it emphasis. Alright, so let's use these tags now. Okay, for that I want to emphasize, I want to put a strong around my lorem ipsum. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna say strong. So strong opening and strong closing. So wherever you apply strong opening and closing, that becomes bold, right? You know bold, right? If you use Microsoft Word, you should have known what bold means. This is like you're adding bold, underline, italics, and playing around with the text. Okay, and these tags mostly are used inside the paragraphs. So all the formatting of the text is done via these tags. So let's do a live preview of it. Okay, so you see the strong has been applied. Okay, and you can see it's in the bold now. Okay, the bold only happened just now for heading tags. Now to apply bold onto the text, you use a tag called strong. Okay, and you want to underline something. Let's go on top, and you want to underline printing and typertext. So you say underline. So printing and typesetting industry is underlined. Okay, if you see it here, it's underlined now. Okay, and you want to add a break here. Obviously the break is already been applied. And if you go down, you want to play around with this. You go down, you want to apply strong onto this. Okay, and also you want to have italics for it. Okay, you can see how it became strong and italics. Maybe you want to write a comment for it. Okay, you can write it in both ways. You can write italics and you can say nice article, and you can say worth reading. And now you want to put a strong for the person who has wrote this comment, right? Okay, you can see here. So this is basically italics and this is strong. Okay, similarly you can play around with this and you can add emphasize. Okay, typically emphasize is used when you want to write a quote or something. You can use emphasize for it, and inside the text you want to add italics, use I tag. Okay, and let's say the same thing, and it's written by Jane, right? It's the same output. Let's refresh this. Okay, it's the same output, but understand emphasize is mostly used to, you know, for a quotation, for writing comments and those kind of stuff. Italics is mostly when you write a text, you want to italic something, then you write to use I tag there. Okay, but most of the output that you see italics and emphasize both look same. Okay, It's just different tags are available for us to use. And you can use the closing of the emphasis here, right? So that's your HTML page. So let's open our HTML page. Okay, it looks much beautiful now. You have your heading tags, you have subheadings, then you have your strong that's coming up from strong. Let's look at that. This strong is coming basically highlighting the text in bold. Then you have underline U tag that's underlining the text. Then you have italics. Here you have applied italics. Then you have strong here, and then you have also used emphasize for it, for this one. Okay, so the page look very nice. Now I can go ahead and change the formatting of text using strong, italics, underline and emphasize. Okay, so these are the tags that is being used to change the format of the text. Well, that's on this lecture on formatting the text, and I'll see you in the next one.